Good afternoon and welcome to today's Fire Engineering Live Google Hangout. Frank Ricci and myself here in East Haven, Connecticut. We got Chief Halton on board with us today for a little bit, who's up to his eyebrows and more with FDIC stuff coming right around the corner. So we hope we can hang out with him for the whole show today, but he may have to bail out a little bit early today. And then we have a really good friend of Fire Engineering and myself, District Chief Tony Perez, coming up to us from Tampa, where it's nice and warm. Sure. Some of you may be a little confused. I know he looks, he's a good friend of mine. He looks a lot like a really popular actor, and we'll leave it up to you guys to think. I won't say how he's a stunt double for The Rock at all. So Tony's here to join us today, and we're going to talk about the importance of training at the company officer level. But before we get to that, we have to give our shout out and thanks to Takata Fabrics, because Takata Fabrics is one of the sponsors of this show each and every month, which we're very grateful for. So we're going to put Chief Perez right on the spot here as we're talking about Takata. Chief, what type of turnout gear do your membership in Tampa wear?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, and it's a blessing. We have Lion V-Force. We use the outer shell, the PBI Max. And we have the Crosstech Black that goes with the Globe Ice for the thermal.
And Chief, that's very similar to what I would expect you to say. We all wear different manufactured turnout gear, right? Whether it's Lear, Globe, Morning Pride, Lions, right? We all have a different mix, but what a lot of us forget at times, it's all made out of the same cloth. 8 out of 10 of us wear gear made out of the same fabric that comes to us from Takata Fabric. And the biggest and most impressive thing to me is their fabric is inherently fire resistive. They don't add any chemicals or any byproducts to their turnout gear to help protect us, right?
I think that's phenomenal. And when you're speccing gear, remember, everybody has their sales pitch, whether you're Morning Pride, Globe, no matter who you go with, everybody has a sales pitch. So it's kind of nice to be able to go to somebody outside who just makes the fabric, who's going to give you the skinny on what's going on with the outer shells, the inner linings, everything. So reach out to Takata. Great people. They're always willing to serve firefighters.
They're made in America.
Made in America. America first.
America, baby.
So today we want to talk about training at and the importance of training at the company officer level. This topic came to me about 6 to 8 weeks ago. I was asked by a Career Chiefs Association here in Connecticut to design a 4-hour presentation to deliver to a program that they call iLead. So it's for brand new company officers. They go up to the Connecticut Fire Academy for a 2-week program. They bring instructors from around the state to deliver a 4-hour topic. So they asked me to deliver a program on the importance of company officer training. So as a training officer of a department, what is their role in training? So it really got me outside of my comfort shell, thinking of something different, and really looking at analyzing the company officer's role in training. And being in a small department, we only have 1 company officer per shift, so it was a little challenging for me. I wanted to get the pulse here a little bit. I wanted to chat with Frank today, Tony himself, and Chief Halton, and let's talk about the role of the company officer. Maybe we can give some tips and tricks for daily drills. If there's a company officer that's sitting around the kitchen table listening to us right now and say, man, I got to come up with a drill for this afternoon, a 20-minute or 30-minute, whether it's a kitchen table drill or a piece of tips and tricks of maybe what they can do spur of the moment. And let's talk about their role in being positive and bringing the chief and the department's mission forward through training, and pretty much how we go about it, each and every day, and supporting our company officers. So Chief Halton, I'd like to start with you, and thanks for joining us today. I know how busy you are.
No, thank you for having me. And you mentioned FDIC. Remember, space is filling up fast. And if you are looking for great company officer direction, if you look at the workshops this year that are available, especially the workshops, there's a great deal of company officer focused stuff, a great deal of drills and training stuff inside those workshops. And the beauty of those workshops, and obviously the hot training, is that you get to go one-on-one with these instructors and listen to them for 4 or 5 or 8 hours and pick their brains. As a matter of fact, the FDSOA is doing the safety officer certification class in there, which fundamentally is about a company officer and the role of safety on the fire ground. And every fire officer ought to strive to be certified by the FDSOA as a fire ground safety officer. Space is limited in that class. I apologize for that, but due to the intense instructional methodology that happens within that class, you sign up for it early, and it is a certification class. The blue card guys, obviously blue card caters predominantly to company officer work, right? That class also has limited space, so please sign up early. And the blue card folks, John and Nikki Brunacini, give you a tremendous discount and opportunity to take blue card, gets you the whole conference activity, huge financial opportunity. And then there's group pricing, right? So if you're in an organization where you're looking at doing company officer development, and say you can't afford to bring in, a big name person and take everybody off shift, here's an opportunity to send. You can get group pricing for 5 or 10 or how many of your folks you'd like to send to either of those programs or FDIC in general, and get tremendous savings, and then have them come back and like Tony has done, create a program that's indigenous to Tampa, that's indigenous to Tulsa, that's indigenous to Tucson, that's indigenous to Tippy 2 and Tyler Canoe and wherever you happen to be, right? So that's smart money, and that's what makes FDIC what it is. And then you get that incredible variety of opinion, right? Because oftentimes, and I've got great friends that do tremendous, Johnny Salka and Ricky Lasky do a great company officer academy. But there is that you've got to be able to bring your people in, and you still got to staff your rigs, right? So if you send some key folks, 8 or 10 key folks out of your organization, or 3 or 4 key folks out of your organization to the FDIC, you can really maximize your training dollars and get an incredible experience. And when we're talking about company officer training, you've got everybody at FDIC, every firefighter, in my opinion, is an instructor. And particularly at FDIC, when you send a company officer, they come back with having heard from everybody from, Kyle Samsung to, John Mittendorf to, Rick Lasky to Tony to Frank Ricci. So they come back with this incredible variety of voices, because what works for Tony, and let's just be honest, what works for Tony down in Tampa might not fit specifically to Minot, North Dakota. Just saying. A little bit like the punker gear that Tony's wearing, don't wear it in Minot, North Dakota. You'll freeze to death. 11 seconds. So it's because it's a completely different environment. And that's why the fire service, and let me, if you don't mind me waxing poetic for a moment here, I just have to say this. We forget that the fire service is strong because we're unified, and we're strong because we're unified locally. In other words, we come together, and I love the national stuff, and God bless us, but those are guidelines. And any knucklehead who thinks that you can create a national standard for what firefighters should be trained to or be doing across this great nation obviously hasn't left the great city of Baltimore in the last 15 minutes. Because, and no disrespect to Baltimore, great city, and I love Baltimore. It's one of my favorite places to go. But again, what works locally in Baltimore works locally because it's Baltimore. And God bless these people who think, our unity is our unity as firefighters of the general mission, vision, values, principles that bring us together, serving a sacred calling, a sacred mission. Our social contracts are very local, and that's important, because the schedule in Tampa could be different than Albuquerque, and it works in Albuquerque because it's Albuquerque, and it works in Tampa because it's Tampa. And how the rigs are, what tools you choose, or what gear you choose, or what issues you have are Tampa issues. Might not be Limestone, Oklahoma issues. So, and I hate to go there, but we always need to keep that in the back of our heads. And you pick and choose and take and pull, and that's what makes us great. And fundamentally, when we talk about the company officer, the reason that they're so important is because fundamentally we have to get away from this. It's called authoritarian high modernism, all right? And I hate to go big words, but basically what it means is a bunch of elite know-it-alls who have no skin in the game, who've never been on a fire truck, think they can tell us how to do our jobs. Well, guess what? You can't. But company officers respect the dignity of the firefighter, understand the beauty of the craftsmanship of the work and how every firefighter strives every day to be just a tiny bit better than we were yesterday, whether it's operating a chainsaw or a rotary saw or the pump panel or packing the hose, or, you know, that's artistry to us. If you haven't done it, then you don't get it. Right? Even I remember being so proud of how I cleaned toilets. And I remember my company officer coming up to me. His name was Billy Mora. And he walked into the bathroom. I was a young firefighter. I just cleaned like 30 toilets. And he looked at them. He lifted the lid. He looked around the rim. He got down low. He looked at the base, pulled a couple of cover screws, you know, the little caps that cover the screw, saw that they were clean, turned around to me and said, "Those are damn clean toilets, Halton. Keep going." And that's all he said. And I was never prouder. And there's a drill for you. I hate to say it, but a lot of guys show up, have never cleaned a toilet. So they don't know how to clean a toilet. That's a drill. That's a real drill. And it matters. It matters. And I'm proud of the fact that I still clean toilets the way Billy Mora taught me. And Billy Mora taught me how to clean a toilet correctly. And it matters. And I'm proud of it. And if I got a job next week working in Walmart and somebody said to me, "Go clean the toilets," I'd clean them just the way Billy taught me. And Billy passed away from cancer a few years ago. And his son is now retired from the job on Albuquerque. That's how old I am. But Billy Mora was a damn good company officer. And Billy Mora was the kind of man who would show up at FDIC and teach how to be a damn good man first, or a damn good woman, and then how to be a damn good company officer. So shameless plug for FDIC, please come. And I can't be more happy to have a guy like Tony Perez on, because you know who Tony Perez is? He's a damn good man.
Thank you.
And then he's a damn good firefighter. And then he's a damn good officer, in that order.
Thank you,
Chief, I can't agree more. And before I pass this to Tony, I have a couple company officers around the country that are new, that are listening to this Google Hangout. And just to set the tone, the cleaning the toilet drill is a drill that needs to be done. But let's not have that be your first drill as the new company officer. Because one of the things that I've got to put out there is, and I have no problem throwing rocks at myself or my own department. I made a name for myself writing articles about my own mistakes. But our department used to be, all company officer training and training academy training used to be punitive. You mess up, you go down the academy, you throw ladders. Somebody blows a hydrant, you go down the academy, or the company officer takes you out and makes you lay lines all day long. So I think we worked so hard in New Haven to change that training cannot be punitive. Training's got to be fun. You got to get the members to buy into it. And every company officer, make your training fun. And here's the other most important thing. Even if it's something that you're not really good at, because everybody has blind spots where the crutch of taking the senior man or the junior person and say, "Hey, I want you to set up a drill." Even if you're going to take that route, make sure whether you're giving the drill or somebody else is giving the drill, as a company officer, you have the courage to go first. Amen. You have to let your personnel know that you're not afraid to fail in front of them, and that you have that humility to lead them, because they'll never leave your side when things are going down, when they know that you're with them. So training can't be punitive. The Bobby Halton toilet drill, very important, but not your first drill. And make sure that you go first in anything, whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable. And it's okay to start off with that joke. I've done it where, "Hey, I'm not real comfortable with this, but I'll go first. I'll take a shot." So you kind of set the expectation that you may not be as great at that one thing as everybody else, but you still got to go first, because that's how they're going to look at you with the respect that you need for when you got to tell them to do something that really, really matters. Tony Perez, let's kick that off to you.
Outstanding. That goes into establishing that trust. For company officers, for me, now being a district chief and stepping away from that role, the biggest thing that I want from my company officers now is to first come in with confidence. And I talk a lot about platforms, building platforms. When we start to build these platforms, we're able to have trust, buy-in, and not having that fear of conflict so we can do these drills. You know as well as I do, we've all been on the job long enough. When you walk in with a lack of confidence as a new company officer, your body language is going to give it off. It's going to show those signs, and the members are going to start to second guess you. So my biggest thing to start on that first platform is having confidence, embracing the new title, embracing the new position, and wanting to be good at being a successful company officer. You know, we run on a lot of EMS calls here in Tampa. So I am always big on, if I see something that maybe some burglar bars, right? Frank, we're talking about this or that, burglar bars, wood frame residential front door we're walking into, or maybe have the kitchen that may be blocking the means of egress of a bedroom in the rear. I'm always quizzing those guys. The first thing out of my mouth was always, what did you see when you walked into that house? Kitchen versus living room, kitchen versus bedroom. Did you see the burglar bars there? You know, how do we get in these burglar bars? What's the fast and most efficient way? You know, and I would, Frank, I would go first, because when you step out and you lead from the front, they're going to buy into it. They're going to trust you. And I think today we have company officers that get promoted just to fill that spot, just to fill the seat. And they have no desire to train, no desire to empower the up-and-coming firefighters to be successful. Because every firefighter that I've ever met, just like Chief Halton and PJ Norwood and Frank Ricci, we all want to be successful. We all want to have success in front of our peers. So if we're not instilling that in our company officers to have confidence, to build trust, to not have the fear of conflict, we're going to fail. And we see that. I've been seeing that, you know, throughout the job and my time in the service and having a little chance to travel. So what I do is I try to stop them immediately. Even now with my new company officers, I want them to train every day. I've given them the list of expectations from me as a district chief and how I'm going to support that operation. They have to train every day, whether it's 15 minutes after an EMS run to an hour, 2 hours on the drill grounds or within the neighborhoods or within even apartment buildings or high rises. I'm going to support that. I want them to train every day, because when the residents and the citizens, whether Tampa, whether Albuquerque or Oklahoma, when they dial 911, they're expecting good service. They're expecting a company to come and be proficient at the skill set. So, you know, that is a huge, important thing. Walk as a new company officer, having confidence so we can empower our young, up-and-coming firefighters to be successful. You're right, Frank. We're not going to know it all. We're going to fail. But we do it, they do it, we do it together, and we build off of that success. And those are some of the things that I'm big on. I was big on as a company officer. I'm going to be still big on it as a chief officer. But I'm doing it now from a company officer level. I want to empower my company officers to be successful. When I was a company officer, I had the firefighters and I had everyone else in between. My wife, who PJ knows very well, she tells me, you now have to empower your company officers to mentor, to lead, and to help build up the firefighters. And she's right. And that's what I've been doing. And I tell them, listen, if you don't know something, if you lack a skill set, do the research. Like Chief Hall said, the internet, you can find it on the internet. If you're unsure, come to me. I have the resources.
Fireengineering.com.
And we do. You know how many people I've turned on to training minutes? I said, great drills for the firehouse. And we go on, and Mike Champo and Ray McCormick, PJ Norwood, Frank Ricci, all of you guys are on. I said, here.
Where's my wallet? Where's my wallet?
But you know what? It's good training too, because a lot of the new company officers, they don't know. They're looking for the answers. They're looking to be successful, and a lot of them don't know where to start when it comes to training. So that is a great tool, training minutes.
To make a couple mentions, a couple things, we'll get back on the conversation. Just want to make sure that everybody remembers the hashtag FETalk. So if you go to Twitter, FETalk, hashtag FETalk, and you can join the conversation, post a question, comment, and we'll get to it and we'll answer it. We also have one from our good friend Sonny, which we'll get to shortly. So Sonny, we will won't forget you. But I kind of want to get back to this for a second, because I agree with you. You have to have that confidence. You have to have that confidence to fail, like Frank mentioned. You have to have that confidence to be able to make mistakes, to show that making a mistake is okay, because that's where we learn. However, there is a fine line there also, and we've all seen it, of that company officer that's too confident, has that ego that's a little bit too big, doesn't want to admit he or she doesn't know how to do something. I think it comes down to really knowing yourself, but also knowing your resources. And I think the people who work for you, that you work with, are extremely valuable that we miss. I have some members of my department that are much better in many things than I am, right? So Tony, you mentioned the word empower. I tap into them, right? And I'm okay
Absolutely.
telling somebody, hey, Tony, man, you're a much better pump operator than I am. You have more experience, you have more knowledge. Can you help me run this drill? Because you know what, Tony, you may not be comfortable running that drill, but hey, will you have my back and cover my blind spots and assist me? Because as a training officer for a combination department, so I have almost 50 career positions, and I have about 100 volunteers in the books. I have 30 interior certified volunteers, and I am the only training division of one. It's not possible for me to be an expert in everything. Yes, I have fireengineering.com. I have fire engineering training minutes. I have all the magazines that we support and fire engineering is part of as resources. But there are times where I may need something else, and I can usually find that within my own department, within my own people. And because I know, man, there's some men on my job that have been on the job greater than 30 years. I was a little kid riding my bicycle and they were fighting fires. They can teach me an awful lot. And I think you have to have that ability to know that just because you're in a position, an officer role or a training officer role, you're not the end all. You don't know it all. Right. I can tell my daughter, Tony, you know my daughter well, Frank, you know my daughter, there's always somebody better, there's always somebody faster, and there's always somebody that knows a little bit more than you do.
Yes.
So you have to know your people, know your resources.
Absolutely.
You know, if I could jump in real quick on the company officer drills, there was an interesting thing that came up the other day from the interviews I did with Chief Brunacini. And one of the things that came up was we were talking about a story about a guy who got upset because the kids didn't know how to handle the chainsaws. And they were complaining, these kids can't handle the chainsaws. Well, whose fault is that? I mean, you know, that's a company officer job. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. We're doing a really cool, and it's my shameless plug time of year, but we've got a brand new FDIC hands-on training course that's all about saws, right? So we're going to take rotary saws and chainsaws, break them down, put them back together, put the blades on, oil them, do all of this stuff and use them, but it's all about saws. So that's a great class to take if you're a company officer, because there's all kinds of tricks and tips and stuff that you learn after using a saw for 20, 30 years that you wouldn't otherwise know, because your head is that everybody knows, that you think everybody knows what you know, right? So, doing a simple chainsaw drill can be really, really important. And then just doing a really short, orientation to the chainsaws, even if you've been doing them for a dozen years. I remember one time I had a good friend, and I don't think you'll mind me mentioning his name. His name was Chris Blackwell. He was our union president, a super guy. But when you're the union president in any city, your head's exploding every day because there's a crisis going on somewhere for somebody, and they want you to fix it, right? And so I said, today we're going to do car fires. We're going to watch some videos on car fire training, and we're going to talk about car fires. And Chris had been on, I think, for like 25 years at this point. And he goes, I'm out of here. And I was the district chief, and he was having one of those union president meltdowns that union presidents have. And I'm a car trainer. Who needs to talk about car fires and blah, 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 blah. And he was mad at me, and so I said, Chris, I love you, bro, but you're being a dope, and I let him have his time because he needed it. And I knew there's something else other than car fires that was bugging Chris. Right. And so, and he came back in the room, sat through it. The end of the thing, he comes walking up to me, goes, yeah, that was pretty good. that was pretty good. Yeah. And we watched the video, right? And yeah. So what's cool about training and is that it's something we should be doing every day, all day. It shouldn't just be, you know, this is drill hour. It ought to be like you come to work and you can make training out of everything. You're checking the rigs in the morning. That's training. You know, you're pulling packs off. Hey, look at this. Look at this. Look what I found here. I got one bottle that's half empty, one bottle that's half full. Could this bottle be leaking? Okay, hey, let's all take a look at this. You know, that's training. You know what I mean?
And you know, Chief, we tell a company officer they should be planning this training the shift before. You know, that gives us some time to do some research, kind of formulate some of objectives. I tell them, you don't have to make 10 objectives. Start with 3, start with 2, start with 4. You know your company strengths and weaknesses. And that way, when you walk in the morning and you lay out the game plan, you lay out the expectations for the day, you're able to start that training trying to meet those objectives. You're with them, whether it's 30 minutes or whether it's an hour, but it has to start. You can't come in that morning and on your way to work and figure out, man, what am I going to do today for a training drill? No, it has to start that shift before in the evening when you're settling down, and now you start to create the plan. So use your members. Like PJ said earlier, we all have strengths and weaknesses. Use them to the events. Allow them, help them do the drill. We get into we think the company also thinks they have to know everything. We don't know everything. We are going to fail. We just have to know where to go to get those resources. We fail. So those are the things we try to implement and instill in our company officers to be able to not be afraid. Even going to FDIC or going to conferences, going to classes to help gain knowledge, buying books from Penwell,
Tony, I signed up for that chainsaw class. I want to do that.
Good.
I'm taking the saws class.
Good.
I'm going to be in that class. If you sign up, one of those sessions, you'll see me in there.
You and I can just run the saws together.
I love saws, man. I love saws. And this cat that's teaching this class, man, he's like the saw whisperer. He's awesome, man. I want to learn from this guy.
Good. Well, learning never stops, right? Even at the chief officer level, it never stops.
You can say it, even for guys who qualify for Medicare.
Well, here's a quick story here about, we were on Saturday, we were talking about inline gauges and standpipe operations, laying the hose out. What's the best way? Well, we started talking about it. The guys are like, okay, we're hooking into the FDIC, but then we're talking about the fire pump. Well, I pulled out my Dave McGrail book that I've had for 8 years. That's all marked everywhere. I took it in, gave it to the company officer, the captain. I said, you take it, read it. If you want to buy the book, just buy the book, but at least you have the resource, establish a game plan. So now next week, we can go out and do some high-rise training. And those are things behind the scenes that I want to help build those company officers so we don't see a breakdown in training efforts from our company officers. And that's where I'm seeing a lack of is captains, company officers not understanding and knowing how to train properly.
One of the questions that I got was, how do you motivate a shift that's a tough shift or, it's hard to motivate them? Real quick story, my first assignment as an engine boss was to a firehouse that's called the Island of Misfit Toys. So that should kind of say it all right in a nutshell. They were a great, busy fire company. However, it was all senior salty guys. And when I came in, I found the key to getting buy-in, and it worked. It was not doing a long drill, but by putting together a company drill that was one thing, whether it was we're going to do breaching a wall and maneuvering your pack or stretching a line to the third floor. We would do one drill, the evolution one time, critique it honestly, and it would be about an hour long. And after 6 months of doing this, of finding something to do every day, and we would work with the weather. I had a lot of senior guys. It was pouring out, or go look at a building. And it got to the point at the end of 6 months that if I'm a union thug and a boss, so if I got caught up on the phone and couldn't get down there quick enough, I would have the senior guy with 25 years on going, hey, Lou, come on, aren't we going to do something today? So they all started buying in because they knew it wasn't punitive. They knew we were going to critique it, we were going to do it once, and it was going to be over. So don't get pigeonholed into that thing of a group that's great firefighters, so we don't need to do this. Yes, you need to do it. Every skill is perishable. So you got to get out there, you got to train, you got to stay in the books, read fire engineering, fire rescue, go to FDIC, watch training minutes, talk to Tony Perez, the Rock, from Tampa, Florida, and here's how to motivate your members.
Okay.
From there.
So we all have, I call them trigger points, but every one of us has something that will motivate us, right? So as a company officer, you have to find out what motivates that individual. Something that motivates you, Frank, it's going to be different from PJ. It's my job as an officer to find out what that trigger or that mechanism starts to get you to train. So you got to get them, first of all, as well as you guys all know, if they don't trust you, they ain't going to buy into what you're giving them. They don't care how many bugles you have on your shoulders or how many bars you come with. They generally want to know that you care about them and that you have the best interest at heart. So to get those less motivated people starting them to move in that right direction, you can create that drill, Frank. You can get whatever drill you may think. Let's talk about forcible entry. Hey, PJ, here, I've got this article. I read this. I saw this video on Training Minutes about forcible entry. What do you think? Can we do a 30-minute training? Can you lead this? Can you orchestrate this training drill? He might be salty, might be disgruntled or salty, but we're going to find out something prior to this point made him that way. What did he have a bad company officer when he first came on the job? Did he have a bad chief officer that really wasn't positive, wasn't empowering, and really made him salty throughout his career, right? Back then, stay as I do, you do as I say, not as I do, and guys got really salty. So moving forward, let's find out what happened prior, why he's this way, and get him to buy into, get him to trust you and buy into that drill. It's small changes, it's small steps, right? So once we get him to be the instructor of that drill, what is it, 30 minutes, 15 minutes? Those are baby steps. You get him to buy in, we're going to get the other guy to buy in. Once we get two people to buy in, we continue and it grows. And you compliment them. You ask them for their feedback. Whether you agree or not, you encourage that feedback from them because you want them to be part of that success. The problem is they get salty. They don't want to be part of it because maybe they gave a feedback and that company officer ripped them apart in front of everyone, right? So what happened? The defense mechanism went up. He doesn't want to buy into it, trust what you have to say. So bring him into, have him build the trust, give him a drill to do, and that way critique it in a positive way. If he does something that's negative or maybe you don't like, we do it behind closed doors. Say, hey, great job here, but PJ, I want you to work on this. How about doing this and let's revisit that drill next week? And that's how you're going to get the buy-in. I know it's difficult. It's easier said than done, but you got to stay the course, stay grounded, trust, and continue with the small steps, and you'll get them to buy in. And listen, culture in Tampa, we're over 125 years. And in 2012, we created a foundation called Friends of Tampa Firefighters. Now, the culture was very deep-rooted. I mean, there was a lot of salty, negative people on the job that didn't care about training, didn't care about education, going to classes. If I told them I was going to FDIC, they would look at me and go, why? Why do you need that? We changed the culture. We're still working on it, but we started changing the cultural mindset starting in 2012. It took us a while, but it's changing. It's taking those small steps and building that trust within the company officers, within the firehouses, within the training grounds, and just allowing them to voice their opinions, voice their training concerns. And you know what? Take it and let's do it. If someone says, well, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can force that door. If PJ comes to me, no, Tony, I don't think you can force that door that way. Okay, try it. Let's go. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, let's go to plan B. That's how you get these people to buy in. So you know what, man, he didn't, He allowed me to try it. I was successful in front of my peers, right? But we worked on a solution. And I'm telling you that I've seen it change. I know it can happen. I know it can. We just have to have the faith and stay firm and stay grounded.
So I'm going to jump. I was just going to jump in for a second as the ombudsman while we've got Tony the Rock Perez and Ben Diesel Norwood and Tom Cruise.
That's right.
Tom Cruise Ricci.
Like
Yeah. Ben, you got Ben Diesel. You got Ben Diesel Norwood. So, hey, listen, For Them Training, who are some really cool people I follow on Twitter, talked about just what Tony was talking about creating the optimal environment. And they threw out, I mean, Twitter's blowing up with FE Talk. So if you want to join in, some great people, Columbia Fire's in there, Sonny O'Connor's in there, For Them Training. But the For Them Training guys threw out a great one where they talked about create like an open gym style where they say you just practice skills like shooting hoops, which was a really cool kind of metaphor. So thank you for throwing that out there. Some really cool stuff. So Rock, they want you to talk about the daily training drill, which I think you just covered really well from Columbia Fire. And then earlier, Sonny was talking about the volunteer side. And I know most of you guys are all career, but he was talking about how the training officers somehow selected, in some of the volunteer organizations by a vote and whatnot. But I would like to hear what you guys think about the career and the volunteer side, about how do you pull in a man or a woman to be a training officer? What qualities are you looking for in a training officer specifically, but also I think on the company officer side that we've been we're talking about the company officer as a training officer. What are some of the, you guys have been hitting all around it, but just to get to Sonny's earlier point and keep going, but some great stuff, and keep talking to us on FE Talk. I am paying attention, and we do appreciate you, and we'll get Vin Diesel and The Rock and Mr. Cruz to comment on it.
There you go.
Chief, before we go any further, I know you have you built some good relationships with our friends over at Tenkata. You want to take a few minutes and just, thank them again and bring them up, and for appreciation for giving us this platform today.
Thank you, everybody at Tenkata. We love you. We'll see you. I'll be seeing them next week. I'll be down in Orlando. We're going to be doing the IAFF PPE symposium. And we'll be visiting with our friends from Tenkata down there, and thank you to our friends from the IAFF for hosting this event and inviting us. So can't wait to visit with everybody down there, and we'll get back to you there.
So I wanted to get back to thank you for the comments on Tenkata, Chief, and get back to the training topic. And I want to go reverse back a little bit to a lot of the things we were talking about, and gaining that trust and allowing people to make mistakes and giving them the confidence. And I think a lot of that you have to start small. If we're going to focus today on vertical ventilation, and that's the topic of the month, we shouldn't be just sending members to the roof with saws to start cutting some holes.
They haven't even cut the lawn. Some guys, Dave Rhodes said that, but he said some people haven't even cut the lawn, never mind cut with a saw. So we do have to do that building block. 100% right. Don't say that negatively.
No, building block training, right? Let's break that down a little bit. We need to make sure our members understand and know the cut sequences. We need to know and make sure that they understand the daily check of the saw, how to start the saw, how to run it safe, the cut sequences. How do we climb a ladder safely with a saw? Do we in our department, your department, do you start the saw on the ground, shut it off, carry it to the roof, or do you carry it running? Different departments do different things, right? So we have to break these big tasks down into these small tasks, right? And building blocks, sequential training. And I think that's a really good way, regardless of what type of training you're doing, to build that trust. Because you want to allow members to make mistakes, but you don't want them to fail.
Right. And I think your point's well taken. And we can't just throw it back on the academy guys, right? We can't say, hey, they didn't get enough in recruit school or wherever they came from, because those guys and gals are under such pressure to cover everything, right? Like if you look at the 1001 standard now, I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be easier to go to medical school. I mean, they got to cover so much stuff. It's incredible. And a lot of it's perishable skills, right? Like working with tools. And then when you get a new tool, like, okay, so say you get a Tempest saw. Well, it might be a little bit different than the skills saw you were working with. Or say you get a new hydraulic tool and you move from, whatever it was to whatever it is, right? It's got different nuances, how you turn it on, where the choke is, where's the relief valves. I mean, and it doesn't make you a bad firefighter to ask questions. It makes you a good firefighter. And I have a great friend, and I mean, no disrespect, and I've told him a million times about it, but there was once a poster that said, shut up and train. Well, you can't do both. You got to ask questions, man. You got to ask questions.
That's true.
You can't shut up and train. I mean, if you shut up, you'll never get training. People assume you know what you're doing, and you don't. It should have been ask questions and train, ask questions and train, ask questions and train. Ask. Hell, if I don't know, well, I'll just make shit up. But ask somebody who's reliable, and they'll tell you that, they'll find out the right answer for you. But I mean, it's okay not to know. I go down to the volunteer fire station all the time, and I ask a million questions because we're getting these new brush trucks, and they're beautiful. And I don't know how you engage this or do that, and that's okay. We got a new set of chains. How do these go on? Right? That's okay. Nobody knows everything. And if you know everything, hell, you'd be on CNN or Fox or MSNBC, or just ask those people. They know everything. But I'm an idiot. I wake up every morning and I put on a set of clothes and I walk out, and my wife says, "Take off that shirt." It happens every day. And obviously she's on the road right now, so I'm sitting here in a cardigan, and underneath it's a Henley. I don't even think those two things go together. But nobody knows everything, and trust me, the older you get, the less you know. I mean, clearly, that's why they build homes for us.
And Frank, just to make another comment about the question that was asked, how do we get those salty guys? Company officers cannot get offended. We get offended too quickly if we're confronted, if we're challenged. Don't take it personal. Help them. Take small steps. And I want to reemphasize that because it is a very difficult process, because when we're met with resistance, we tend to quit. And you just have to push through it. But don't take it personal. Talk to that person in private. If you want to motivate that person, get him to buy into what you want him to do, and stay confident. Don't take it personal. Encourage, because there's something that happened prior to you get to receiving him as a member, something in life, whether fire department, prior life, something happened to make that person resistant to change in the fire service, resistant to you. So they're going to throw their guard up. You just have to evaluate it, and take those small steps.
Tony,
and don't get offended.
Tony, we're Americans. We wake up every morning and have a little revolution. It's who we are. Seriously, people resist naturally. It's what you do, and that's okay. Say, hey, man, I know you're gonna like the story with Chris, my buddy Chris.
Yeah,
one of the best firefighters I've ever met, one of the greatest friends I've ever had. But if he didn't resist, he wouldn't be Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what we do, and it's okay. Heck, that's a natural, I think, protective mechanism, because otherwise we'd be following, every knucklehead who ever came along, man. And we don't, right? I mean, it's that qualifier moment. Does this guy really know what he's talking about?
And that's where the trust comes in. Yeah, they're gonna weigh you. They're gonna weigh you out. They're gonna watch you, and if you show confidence, not cocky or arrogant, but show confidence, and you build that trust, yes, they're gonna buy into what you're trying to teach them, and they're gonna walk that walk with you because they know you're gonna lead and you're gonna take care of them. You have to take care of the members in the firehouse, because we have company officers that, the moment their companies fail on a fireground tactical assignment, they're not taking responsibility. It's the captain's responsibility or the company officer's responsibility when we fail as a company to whether stretch that line and get an operation or to throw that ladder up to the second floor. But yeah, they're going to watch you and they're going to see what you're about. Especially, like Frank Vescuso likes to say, leadership starts down on the bottom ground, right? To be a good training company officer, it starts from the moment you come into that firehouse, and eventually you build those platforms. And they're going to watch it. Oh, Oh, look at Tony Perez. He's done enough in his career. Now he's a captain. Let's see what he's got to show me. He never was interested in training, never wanted to go to class, and never wanted to educate himself. So, yeah, you're going to have an uphill battle. But listen, we can make changes, right? We all make mistakes. We just have to build that trust.
And remember that every time you go to a call, it's an opportunity as the company officer to do a drill. There's nothing, we tend to just critique fires, but there's nothing that says that you can't critique a car accident, an education, a medical. Stand outside and have your crew size up the house that you say, hey, if there was fire coming out of that basement window, what would you do? And you do a 30-minute thing on the back of the truck. You can do that and then make sure that you document it. And don't just do that tailboard critique at a fire. Make sure that you take every new person and your company and walk them through what everybody did on the fire ground. It takes an extra 15 minutes, but they're already there. They're already hot. They're already sweating. And it gives them that global perspective of what did the truck do? Make sure those new guys, hey, I want you to climb up the ladder and talk to the two guys from truck 4 and ask why they made the decision to cut the hole there and how they did it. And let your crew go through that whole fire. It takes 15 minutes, but the perspective that they get out of it and the questions that you will receive from it, now you can take that and say, okay, on days, we're gonna drill on ladders. I went to a 2-alarm fire the other night and somebody put a 35-foot ladder, which is 20 feet in the bed, in a second floor window. And I moved it out of the window as soon as I got to the second floor. And Chief Alston goes, well, why are you moving the ladder? Well, nobody's getting out the window, Chief. This is a 16, not a 35.
Yeah.
Ladder's doing nobody no good. It's getting out of the window. So,
yeah, but you got to give them partial credit for throwing the ladder.
Yes, partial credit. But again, that's an experience thing. That's a failure of company officers, command officers like myself to say, hey guys, as an order of magnitude, when you go to a 2-story house or a 3-story house, the second floor, always grab the 16. The 35's 20 feet in the bed. It's not going to get you where you need to go for that second floor window. So you can give those little rules to kind of go back and forth. So the key, before I pass it to Tony, same thing what I said about that company officer. You got to be willing to go first and make a fool of yourself.
Absolutely.
When you're doing that critique, and I've been famous for this, is when you do the critique, always start off with what you would have did different in hindsight as the company officer, or what you did wrong and you should have did different. Yes. And then that brings down everybody's guard, and then it brings everybody together, and you can really have an impact on your career. PJ.
So I want to get back to Sonny O'Connor's question. And I also want to give a plug, since Chief Fallon's on the FDIC plug. I'm going to jump on board that train today. I think that SAW class sounds great. If I wasn't teaching, it's probably something that I would actually go take. But since Frank Ricci and I wrote an article in 2014 with Frank put out there on power saw operations, you can read that article. You can come to Sean Gray's and mine, working at the fire flow plant. So I'm going to throw a plug out there. No, Frank will be teaching. Is your class, Fred?
My class is Tuesday on increasing influence and building your command presence. And it's not just a leadership class. It's kind of like that tactic, strategy, and leadership kind of built together based in real life that reflects our operational realities on how you can achieve success not only on the fire ground, but the first time you have to stand in front of a room and everybody disagrees with you. I'm in that position a lot as a union boss. The first time you get a camera stuck in your face on a fire ground and you got to advocate for something or your members. This class is if you have attention deficit disorder workshop, because if you don't like something I'm saying in this minute, we're on to a different topic that's going to make you better. We can all learn something. And if you don't learn anything, I promise I'll entertain you.
It's a Frank Ricci class.
Frank Ricci class.
One of the best. So, and I want to get back to, because we're getting close to that time frame that we need to start, thinking about wrapping up, is Sonny O'Connor, and I feel that I really want to get to his question because we're only really talking to career staff today, and we do have a lot of volunteers that maybe aren't tuning into the show live, but that watch this and downloads on the Fire Engineering YouTube channel later on. And even though, Tony, even though Sonny's a Red Sox fan, we'll leave that aside.
We won't hold it against him.
But he wants to know about qualifications for the instructor or the training officer of his volunteer department. He says it appears that, at times he feels that that's just on popular vote. So he wants to know what type of certifications. Obviously, ideally, that person, in my opinion, like to hear everybody's thoughts on this, they should be a fire service instructor. right? They should come to the table with a certified skill set that they can perform in that instructor's position.
Training, knowledge, and experience.
However, in a lot of departments, in a lot of those volunteer departments, that may not be available to them. It may not be in the cards to send somebody off to that instructor school. So I also think that we have to look at some of these situations a little bit differently sometimes, right? If somebody has the ability, they have the knowledge, they have the humility, they have the understanding of using their resources, their global resources, their local resources, their department resources, anybody could put a good class together. Anybody could put good training together as long as they're passionate about that.
You got to remember, in that capacity of what you just described, they're not a training officer. They're a training coordinator where you're using their strengths, say they're a college professor or a teacher. It always has to be merit-based. It shouldn't be for the volunteer department who bought the most beer at the softball game or who socially engineered or who kissed the mayor's ass. The paid departments, the IFF and the volunteer associations have never taken a position on merit-based promotions and for training certification, and both, and I say this as a union president of one of the largest unions in an urban city in Connecticut, it always has to come down to merit. So if you don't have instructor one, there's so many resources through the instructor society, through their state fire academies, through fire engineering. You gotta push to get those qualifications, but you can be a great training coordinator because if you're a teacher or a professor or you have a certain skill, then yes, you can definitely teach a class, but you're not a training officer, you're a training coordinator until you get the credentials, training, knowledge, and experience, and I'll get off my soapbox. Tony Perez.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Frank. You know, we have to invest in what we're trying to do. And I know it's hard. I know people have everyday lives, we work, and there's things that take place, but we have to invest in our future. We have to invest in it. So yes, going out and getting these certifications to develop your skill base so you can teach others. You have to. And I agree with you, Frank. You have to go out, and it shouldn't just be like you said, hey, who brought the most beer or who's doing that. It's not, because at the end of the day, when something bad happens, it's going to reflect back on your department. So for Sonny, who is a Red Sox fan, it should not be based on just who's doing the best for that day. It should be based on certifications. We should go above and beyond. If you truly want to be that training, that officer, and really empower your members, you may have to go to FDIC. You will have to go to FDIC. You will have to reach out to PJ Norwood, Frank Ricci, Chief Halton, and say, hey, I need help here. Help me develop the skill set so I can get certified, so I can bring it back to my department and teach it. We have to today. I mean, the days of back 30, 40, 50 years ago, they're gone. The way the world is turning today, we have to start looking at things from a different perspective. And yes, you will need to invest in your future.
And there's opportunities there. You know, so for the department to say, well, we don't have the funds, we don't have the ability, I urge them to next year look to fire engineering and Honeywell. Honeywell and fire engineering partner every year, and they give scholarships to FDIC. That's a great opportunity for maybe a department who doesn't have that ability to send somebody to FDIC, or an individual who doesn't have that ability, right? Because, you know, life happens, right?
Yes.
You know, and watch fireengineering.com closely on social media, and fireengineering.com, Chief Halton, these Google Hangouts, and we'll tell you when that stuff is coming up, because that's a great opportunity. So you can go.
I'll just tell you real quick on that point to just echo, you know, and you're absolutely nailing it, PJ. And what a lot of folks don't, and I hate to go there, and just seriously, there's so many ways to get discounted attendance at FDIC. If you look at the group stuff, I can't tell you how many times I'll run into an organization at FDIC and they'll say, yeah, there's 15 of us here, or there's 8 of us here. And I'll say, oh, did you get the group rate? And they're going, I don't know the group rate. So when you register, right. If you're a training officer right now and you're watching, the guy who runs FDIC, his name's Eric Schlett. He's put together some tremendous packages. He's a brilliant guy, and he wants as many people as possible to get to FDIC. And so if you go to that website and you're a training officer and you're registering people, make sure you take a look, because if you're sending more than 2 or 3 people, there's a package for you. and some of them are amazing, and the discounts are fantastic, and the early bird stuff is amazing. So take advantage of that stuff. You know, and you hate to sound like a corporate shill, but there's so much training there. I mean, there's 200 classrooms. There's 27 hands-on training evolutions. There's 90 workshops. I mean, you can, whatever you're looking for, it's there. I mean, literally, whatever you're looking for. There's the technology summit. You know, if you're wondering what the next thing coming down the road with technology, the best minds in the world are coming there. You've got Colonel John Belch from DARPA who's talking about robots. There's nobody in America who's more connected to that technology than this cat, man, and he's coming. You got Sam Crossman, who's walked into volcanoes, who's coming to talk about, you know, thermal imaging and the next advances in that. You've got guys that are, and gals that are, you know, you've got Katie Johnson doing this leverage, force, and aggression class, hands-on class, and Frank was just talking about throwing ladders. This is an absolutely true story. Katie last year showed me, Mike Dugan, Mike Galliano, a handful of some of the most experienced firefighters in the country, how to do a 35 by yourself that I'd never seen before. No one. This young lady has spent more time researching leverage, force, and aggression and how to manage that in doing fireground tasks than anybody. And her team, holy mackerel, each one of them showed me something I'd never seen before. And I was flabbergasted. I walked away saying, man, that's the price of admission right there for me.
Adaptability.
And these are folks that are, man, talk to them, take their class, and then you call them up. She answers the phone. No, dude, you're putting get your phone. No, you're putting your foot in the wrong place. Oh, damn, that's right. It doesn't, man. Go and talk to these cats, man. You gotta have PJ Norwood and Sean Gray talking to you about flow paths. No two guys have spent more time trying to figure this nonsense out, and it's not nonsense. I mean, it's heady stuff. Wrong word. I apologize.
No, it's okay. Frank says the same thing.
No, but think about it. Braidwood in 1866 from the London Fire Brigade was talking about the same stuff, and then we lost it, and now we're capturing it again, and that's a beautiful thing. And these two guys have dedicated their lives to trying to understand it, man. Mm-hmm. And so go and get into it. And this is like the one place in the country where you can go and get as excited as a 5-year-old boy or girl on Christmas morning, and nobody laughs at you. Everybody goes, oh, too, you know. I mean, holy mackerel, there's Paul Shapiro. Oh my God, there goes, you know, Steve Probowski. Oh, holy mackerel, here comes, you know, like I'm in awe of these cats. And man, I don't know. That's what being, man, training's like the coolest thing in the world, because it helps you. It just helps you do everything, not just firefighting.
Yeah, it's balance. It's a complete balance. Yeah, I agree, Chief. You said we had a firefighter last year from Tampa win a scholarship to go to FDIC. She, I call her my little pit bull, because she, you know, we all have strengths and weaknesses when we're throwing ladders. She knew what she had to do to get that 24 up to the second floor, or, you know, or throw that 14-footer up. But she did great, and she ended up going out to FDIC and took some classes under the scholarship program. Our department, unfortunately, does not pay for us to go, so everything is out of our pocket. So she was able to qualify for one. So, yeah.
20 years ago, I could muscle anything. Not today. 20 years ago, I was 35, 45 pounds heavier. Mm-hmm. Not today. And so you never stop learning. And I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to go crazy.
No, you're right.
Yes, Frank and PJ, but these are three guys that get it, right?
Yes.
And you know, before we leave, Tony, please tell folks how to get a hold of you. You know, if they need to talk to Tony Perez.
Absolutely. You can get a hold of me at area code 813-380-6173, or you can send me an email. I'm going to spell it out because some people forget the S. It's THESPRINGS 11 @yahoo.com. The Springs 11. Yes, please reach out. Anything I can help you with, I'd be more than happy. If I don't have the information, we'll get you to the right resource, like those two gentlemen over there and Chief Halton. But we're in this circle to make sure we continue to empower our company officers to be able to train, to make better firefighters, right? We get an opportunity. It's that opportunity we take that's going to leave that legacy of what we leave behind. So we want to make sure we do it right. It's not easy, right? We all know it's not an easy walk, but we got to have that confidence to be able to have trust and faith in ourselves that we can get buy-in and make better firefighters.
And one final thing, and if you can't make FDIC, look at what's going on around you locally.
Absolutely.
There's always opportunities to train. If you're up in Portland, get a hold of Cody Trestle. In Fireship Days, get a hold of Kirk Isaacson down in Florida. There's all kinds of great guys who are out there who are willing to help you out, and they're all teaching at FDIC. They're all friends of ours. Make sure you find out what your local department is doing. Find out what your Chief Officer Association is doing. And we get it. Sometimes getting FDIC is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for guys. Obviously, 35,000 people. It's Mecca. Everybody wants to get to it once. It's like, being a Catholic, you want to get to Bethlehem, you want to get to Rome. If you're a Jewish person, you want to get to Mecca. If you're a firefighter, you want to get to FDIC. And we want to get you there. But don't forget about the local guys. Heck, if you're up in New Haven, you got Frank Ricci, you got PJ.
Absolutely.
If you're down in Georgia, you got Sean in your backyard, And there's always local stuff going on. And fire engineering supports all of it. And we love everybody. And if you're near a show, go to the show, learn, and keep your mind open, keep your heart open, and take care of each other.
Amen.
And stop down in Georgia to see Sean. You can always find him outside.
That's right.
I know he's watching this, so I say that with the utmost respect because I love Sean Gray.
That's my brother.
I will give PJ the last word. It was an honor having Tony Perez on, and Chief Halton, we convinced him to stay on, so we really appreciate it. It's always great to have the boss. But PJ, we'll give you the last word, and we're out for today.
Thanks, Frank. So I think that this is a great show as always. I always set much higher goals of things I'd like to achieve. So I think maybe next month we'll bring everybody back together with maybe a couple other company officers so we can get into the daily drills. If we could all bring a couple daily drills to the table, we can help the company officers do those daily drills. So we'll look at the next date of the next show for either for February or March, where we get some other company officers and we'll go that route, because that was something I was hoping to get to today. But I think what we covered was phenomenal. I think we covered a whole bunch of items that are definitely beneficial to the brothers and sisters working today or going to their station house this evening that they can use. We're grateful for Takata. Remember, 1.1 million firefighters are wearing Takata fabrics. They've been building fabrics for our safety for greater than 50 years. And we're grateful to them to sponsor this show each and every month to help us talk to the firefighters across the country in this Google Hangout. But without Takata, without Chief Halton and Fire Engineering giving us this platform, we wouldn't even have this ability to share ideas with The Rock all the way down in Tampa.
Oh, man. So, well, I'm privileged to be with Tom Cruise right there. Thank you.
And Vin Diesel.
So we thank everybody. We really appreciate it. Chief Halton, thanks. We really appreciate it. We know you're up here and things to do. And you started off the show by saying you weren't going to be able to join us today for the whole day, but we sucked them in. We sucked you right in. And we're glad you did, because you always give so much to these shows, and we truly appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, God bless.
Tony, thank you. We'll see you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, PJ.
Bye-bye.
Bye now, everyone.